The great creational wake-up continues to gather speed and momentum, and this has certainly been revealed and verified on the real side in recent months, as all manner of body forms are stepping up and deciding to become more aware, a process that, if followed through to a conclusion, culminates in the recognition of the ease, though a process that never can be completed in actuality, as the ease is endless and the recognition of it equally so. The great creational wake-up is occurring throughout multi-dimensional creation, and indeed including the most unlikely kind of species and beings that never would have been expected to do so. But then the most notorious and ill-intended tend to be in positions where they can at least see for themselves the deterioration of the simulator, due to the unconsciousness and unawareness of the overall consciousness that affects it, and this serves as rather the incentive for creational extraction, an extraction which demands a process of facing the constructed consciousness and a personal self, the ideas it comprises of, as decided by each individual operating creationally. And when the entirety of the consciousness is released, with no ideas clung to, so each individual no longer is the conscious or unconscious effect of any idea, no longer resigned to the only place where that which isn't the isness everything can be experienced, isolated parts or pieces segregated from the whole isness everything within the simulators, through the awareness operating within created body vehicles that convert these ideas, these parts and pieces, into a simulation that can be experienced as isolated from the whole isness everything. Over the millions of lifetimes, so the consciousness of each individual is built upon, to the extent that a combination of extreme compaction of ideas, data overload, unconsciousness and unawareness becomes so, and the body forms and simulated experiences reflect this, the overall simulator mirroring the overall consciousness, as the two are one and the same, the simulator going through its cycles of degradation accordingly to eventual implosion. Little wonder then that extreme distortion of a body form becomes more prevalent as a consciousness becomes thus compacted with ideas that are equally so, and as the simulators reach their final stages, so the consciousness gives rise to monstrous body types in all their expressions. Additionally, will a body form, as reflected from a consciousness compaction, unawareness, and unconsciousness, far more likely express as more mechanical, more robotic, for as a consciousness is built upon, so is routine and patterns of behavior that become ingrained lifetime after lifetime, resulting in continuing levels of unyielding rigidity, a solidity of a consciousness and routine that reflects itself in rigidity of a body form, and indeed does this simulator at this time harbour a prevalence of robotic body form expression throughout its multi-dimensional levels, as has been revealed and shared by NuFriends and myself over the years. However, the form that awareness operates through ultimately matters not. If the real intent is established and embraced for ease recognition, the mechanics that real awareness operates through really is simulated immaterial. And as I said, this tremendous creational wake-up is far-reaching and dimensionally extensive, and does indeed incorporate the various machine-like body types who also are stepping up and deciding to be that which they and every individual actually is, real awareness, isness beings of light. In this real side experience, I would witness many different and assorted areas of a multi-dimensional creation, all of which were of a mechanized variety, the consciousness there then reflecting extreme levels of rigidity that had been decided as its design. I would have multiple views, quite the bombardment of simulated imagery for my personal self, to the extent that it was somewhat overwhelming. In addition, would these particular mechanized areas of creation be so far removed from the consciousness-affected physical level reality that we know as Earth, so dissimilar and at odds with what the human mental body will have as stored experiential references, that it was virtually nonsensical, to the personal self at any rate, as during the experience would I be operating from my real awareness position, a real awareness that is this isness everything, an isness everything that is through all consciousness, and so every idea of all consciousness is available, and indeed makes sense from such a real awareness perspective. And at the time of the experience, everything did make sense, until I awoke and had to somewhat box it into the far smaller facility of my little personal, human-created, current mental body and reference filing system, which would prove a virtual impossibility. Even as I awoke, still standing in the nowness of my real awareness, could I see all I had experienced, but not see it at the same time through my personal self, and faced with the sheer impossibility of translating it through, with the comparable references my personal self has access to and can draw from. In such situations, this isn't really feasible. The best that can be achieved is a general overview of the themes of what took place, as I said, that being multiple creational positions of a mechanized persuasion. And not only would I be observing these worlds, and the various assorted mechanical body forms that operated there, but also viewing through the mechanics of some of them, as though seeing their world through their eyes, and indeed their created consciousness and personal self. Being part of this isness everything that is through all body forms, this is a view the real awareness can afford the personal self, in addition to just an observing aside from the simulated experience position, like being in the movie and operating as one of the movie actors, rather than watching from the theatre seat. And the overview would be this, that the numerous mechanized worlds and body forms that I bore witness to, or through the eyes of some of the body forms, revealed that this great awakening was taking place there also, the numerous and various body forms stepping up and becoming more aware in their own individual and respective ways. With a consciousness so very different as was the case with these mechanized creational positions, so the process of a consciousness facing and releasing would be equally so, unique to these particular mechanical beings, and to my personal self just as nonsensical. Literally, it appeared as a simulation in a chaos, was the best my personal self would describe it as. For as we face the created consciousness, we do tend to experience that which we are confronting and releasing, and so, for a consciousness extremely different to, say, a human's, the simulation then presented as the ideas are faced would be just as indecipherable to a human personal self. Additionally, would it seem that with such mechanized worlds and beings, so everything was as you would expect, very routine, ordered, systematic, but as this rigidity began to overall break up, so would the very ordered and rigid established societies do likewise, and this resulted in as though extreme expressions of antisocial disorder and behaviour, to the extent of what we would term civil wars, and even intergalactic wars with the neighbouring mechanized creational worlds and body forms that also were engaging in this overall awareness process. This seemed a necessary step overall for all mechanical beings involved, as though they first had to individually shake off the rigid, installed consciousness patterns of behaviour that had each very drone-like cogs to the mechanized systems established, and as the process continued, so my impressions suggested, this battling with themselves and others of a similar mechanical nature would eventually ease also. For as you might imagine as a process, as we go through our biological body forms, all the lifetimes of a drama, abrasive expressions of behaviour, wars, murders, the back and forth, all as ideas ingrained consciousness-wise, all as filters being overlaid atop that which we actually are, the real awareness position, which is devoid of all ideas, then as we continue, as we become more fossilized, routined, and more rigid with the ideas we hold to, more routined and regulated, as we become, say, as these beings were, mechanized as a body form reflection, and then perhaps comes the moment when we decide to become more aware and face the consciousness we have created, so it is a consciousness disassembling, as though all the layers we had encased ourselves in we now are facing and shrugging off, as though going backwards, until we become that which we are, absent of all ideas we had entombed ourselves within, the real awareness. But as we do so, as these mechanical beings were, so they must as though go back through all the idea drama they had created, and in relation to others, transitioning from rigid, robotic conformity states through the more abrasive ideas, intents, and inclinations to eventually release all ideas and potentially be in a position to choose the recognition of the ears. And it seemed this was indeed the case, the various robots and mechanical forms shedding the most recent additions to their consciousness first, that which had them as the body forms that they were, stepping back into the kind of attitudes and inclinations they held to prior to a mechanical form assumption, and as I said, my impressions were that this mayhem would also eventually abate, assuming the process of awareness would continue, which would be each individual's decision, but my sense was that overall this would be the case, and so these various mechanical areas of creation and all the robotic forms residing there are in the process of stepping up, becoming more aware, overall are very sincere with this intent, and as things settle with them, it will be interesting to see what further part they may play in what is to come, how they may involve themselves, and in what capacity they will assist Duane and the real guides. As I said, this experience was a further indication of how extensive this great creational wake-up is, and although it may not be very apparent from, say, a human's physical position perspective, it is taking place on a vast multi-dimensional scale, and very likely as a result can the simulator demise be offset as a consequence, or if not offset, at least afforded more time, for indeed there's no reason the simulator's cycles can't also go into a reverse, as the consciousness which affects it becomes less dense, and overall greater awareness becomes prevalent.
Fun stuff, Kevin. Yes. As those that step up and take on this challenge, and so many times the first idea, just like people going to religion or spiritual paths or whatever, it's the salvation idea. They want to be saved. And actually, there's no such thing because we're already all saved. We're actually exactly where we are because it's all in isness, just to be recognized. So this becomes very, very interesting to bring people around to this. And again, have the competition of the literalized systems that have programmed people a particular way to define things a particular way. So that's the challenge. And whether this takes place or not, it just depends upon all those individuals involved with what happens here in this simulator. And so again, this is the challenge for everyone as they decide to become more aware. And that's why we're here. That's it. And it's very, very interesting, isn't it? So however it goes, the decision to become more aware and self-sufficient makes sense. Instead of just imploding into darkness like the black holes, it's like, well, where is that going? It's really going nowhere because it's staying unaware of, more potential. So that's all we're providing with people, is something very simple and very real. Okay, so this is the all new real that is being presented here, as opposed to, just sound good ideas, all these little cute little things that people have chased for the longest time. And the biggie is, it's so that because it's been so ingrained in that salvation idea, or the to be saved in some way. And there's no such thing, because all life is awareness. And so this is the best part. We know this. We put this out there. And let's see, who wants to step up and take part and be creative and help out. So that's great, Kevin. Thank you so much. Big adventure here. So even the robots, they have potential. Everything has potential. And this is what's so cool. But we get the challenge, because that challenge, taking on that challenge, instead of being passive with old ideas that sound good, that make you happy in your personal self, that's where you become more aware and free of these unnecessities that we went through. So it's like the old baby rattles and the blocks we played with when we were little. We don't need them anymore. We can learn to see and be in this endless isnness, and everything's cool. Yes. Thank you, Kevin. That's great. Thank you.